The following podcast is a work of fiction and has not been approved by the Central Office for News, Safety, and Public Information of the Reptilian Elite. Any resemblance to persons living or allegedly dead is a complete coincidence, and there is absolutely no subliminal programming being downloaded into your auditory canals. You'll pay no attention to any of it, and only be mildly entertained. Everything discussed is a lie, even this disclaimer. You have been warned. It's time for
Don't Shoot the Messenger.
That's right. Welcome back to another episode of Don't Shoot the Messenger. As always, I'm Chris Dickens alongside my cohort,
Jinx, just Jinx.
And Jinx, we're going to touch on one of your favorite subjects today.
The Bible.
The Bible. But we're not going to be all religious here. I'm sorry, Jinx. We're not going to be, preaching to people. We're actually going to be talking about a book that was removed from the Bible.
And whether or not it should have been. And just exactly why. Now, of course, there's been a lot of books that have been removed from the Bible. But this is the book of Enoch that you're wanting to talk about today, correct?
Correct. This is the book of Enoch, which was actually before the King James Bible. It was widely viewed as like the main book to read in the Bible.
One of the most important keystones.
Yeah. Like a lot of people viewed it as like the most important things because it actually details a different end of the world than the
Revelations with John's dreams. Yes. It's a lot different. There's a lot of things like looking into this that are different than what you're used to reading in the Bible, which, it kind of makes it somewhat understandable. Now, they said it was a little too crazy and imaginative. Not crazy, I'm using that word, but imaginative and unrealistic. But then as far as the storylines go, but where's the line of what's realistic and what's too imaginative when you have in the Bible the great floods and the temptation of Job and all this other stuff going on, but this is too imaginative. But maybe we should tell everybody exactly what happens in the book of Enoch and let them decide for themselves.
So the book of Enoch describes the Watchers, and you've heard us talk of the Watchers before, and I think we've mentioned the book of Enoch. We've never gone into depth on it here. So the Watchers are essentially angels, and there were 200 angels that were told by God to watch over us and make sure we were being good people. And then these said angels actually got tempted by man and decided that they wanted to come down and breed with women. And that breeding actually led to the birth of giants.
Yeah. So angels and humans have sex. Apparently that's how we get giants, which made me think of the Titans, from Roman and Greek mythology. Not sure which one it was they were called the Titans in, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
These were not good giants. They were kind of destructive. They kind of, needed lots of food to eat, destroyed a lot of stuff. They weren't well behaved. But they're said to be the explanation for why we find these giant rock formations, things even such as Stonehenge or different like giant stairs, canyons, deep gullies and valleys and stuff. It's attributed to these giants to an extent.
Yes. And so God then was deterred, I guess you'd say.
Perturbed.
Perturbed, I guess you'd say, about these giants and them pretty much destroying Earth. And so what happened is everyone's probably one of the most well-known stories in the Bible and the Great Flood of Noah.
Oh, yeah. Everybody knows the story of Noah and the ark and the flooding of the world. And, it's because God said that man was wicked and he needed to, start over basically. But Noah and his family were pure and good. So that's why he decided to save them. But with the book of Enoch, there's another reason for the flood. How else do you get rid of a world full of giants?
You drown them.
Mm-hmm.
You drown them. So these angels, though, let's go back to these angels. The angels, sure. They lived with man for quite some time. And they taught them how to make weapons. They taught them science, alchemy, all types of different crafts that God did not want them to know. Just gave them different types of knowledge so they could grow as humanity, and that also angered God.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I go back to the best way people describe things, especially in that time. It's a very primitive time. Is something flying down from above, you're going to throw wings on it because it flies down. I mean, if they could be humanoid, so these creatures that you call angels might look like man, but they're different in certain ways. How are these not aliens?
Yeah, that's one of the things I was wondering too. A lot of things that you read in the Bible and stories, I think, make you wonder as to, their descriptions and stuff as to whether or not it's aliens coming down to Earth and interfering with what's going on with humanity or bringing knowledge or whatever. And I think this is just another instance of that kind of, if you're inclined to believe that aliens have visited Earth, that it's just more proof of that if that's what you're looking to find.
Yeah, I mean, it's a higher being than them. So if you think about it, heaven is described in the Bible a lot is kind of like a monarchy, is it not? And then there's like lower tiers and lower tiers of how it all kind of goes down. I mean, it's referred to as a kingdom constantly.
Yep, the kingdom of heaven.
The kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God.
You got to attribute that to the translators as well, though.
I'm just saying, if they were taught this by the angels, it's not even just translating, but if they were told this by angels, like the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God, it shows that there are multiple texts that it's kind of described as a monarchy in that fashion. And so these are lords, I guess you'd say, that came down and disobeyed God and taught his peasants, because we are his peasants, how to live better lives, which he viewed as corrupting them.
It's like, what are we working towards? What is it that God ultimately wants, or the aliens ultimately want?
Well, I mean,
that's another question for another theory.
That goes back to reptilian elite.
Yes, exactly.
Of course.
Not a reptile.
So these 200 angels, they were then banished to either second heaven or to live on Earth and stayed on Earth. Azrael is one who's shown to have taught us all of the different knowledges. He was the leader of the 200 angels.
Yeah, of how to use fire and all the basic things that we've learned as human beings to help progress, and build weapons and different things of knowledge. It's all attributed to Azrael teaching human beings about that.
Yes. So let's talk about Enoch for a little bit here, though, too, as well.
A little bit more, hopefully, than what the Bible actually mentions him, because this is a person, one sentence.
One sentence once. And same with the giants from the book of Enoch. They were mentioned once in Genesis. And so, this is a book that kind of ties a bunch of stuff together that has been excluded.
Which makes you wonder why. If it ties so many different things in the Bible together and explains so much, why exclude it? What's the purpose in doing so? Just because it's imaginative? That doesn't hold water with me when there's so much in the Bible that can be construed as imaginative.
I agree with you. So Enoch was essentially abducted, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
It's in there.
There's no other way to put it. He was taken up to heaven or abducted. Yeah.
Yeah. He was taken to heaven and walked with God for 350 years. But his description of heaven in the book of Enoch is a crystal palace with lots of lights. And
as we've discussed before, if you've never seen a spaceship before and don't know anything about the future technologies, how would you describe a spaceship if you came across it back then?
And being so primitive, these are not people who had been exposed to too much. So, you see things shining, you're like, oh, it looks like stars and crystals and lights, like all the shiny things I've ever seen in my life. And you're just surrounded by metal and lots of things, and it just goes into him talking about it. He eventually reveals God's secrets in one part of his book, in one of the chapters. It's just very interesting on how Enoch was also one who was brought back. He's also one that God sent down, though, to teach knowledge and crafts as well. So God taught a man to do it and had him do it, but the angels couldn't come down and do it.
Yeah, it doesn't make it. There's a lot of confusing things with this. And if he walked with God and God is the one that gave him this information, why then would people not want to listen to it or follow it or try to understand it? Maybe God thought that Enoch, being a man, would be able to better relay the information to humans as opposed to the angels. But the angels were already living with the people.
Came from him rather than coming from the angels. God passed it down himself
directly.
Wasn't disobeyed.
True.
So this is also where Satan is one of the first times Satan is mentioned. Santaniel is his name, and he's the one who entices the Watchers to leave and go down to earth and bear children with man. It's the first mention of Satan, and I could get into a whole rant about how Satan's a reptilian, but I won't.
I've got to hear that one someday, but yeah, maybe not for this one.
Not for this one. But it's the first mention of Satan. It's one of those things where it confuses me why it was removed.
Yeah, it's confusing. There's so many things, and that I even have a relative named after Enoch. So he's somebody that the Christians believe to be an important person, but not important enough to read his book or include it in their Bible. So it's kind of a mystery as to why they really decided to take him out in the King James Version, which would have been in 1100?
I think it was in the 9th or 10th century.
Mm-hmm.
And so as everyone knows, we're talking about the King James Bible, that the Bible, we know now, was actually constructed by man. It's not the full Bible. It was the archdiocese at the time decided to take out and put in the books that they chose were right.
And they felt were relevant. Yeah. So anybody that watches the History Channel these days or Discovery Channel will see at some point, the whatever book removed or the forbidden books, the Bible. It is just really curious as to why a lot of these were taken out and who decides which ones are relevant and which ones are more real than the others. It's just more conspiracies, lots of them with the revolving around the Bible.
Yeah, the one sentence that gets me about Enoch in this is, and Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him.
So being abducted.
Is that not just a straight, you're being abducted?
Yes, straight up, 100% sounds like an abduction story. God took him. Or does it mean he died? That's when you say God took someone up to heaven, for the most part.
That's in Genesis. So it's not. That's actually in the King James Bible. That's not in the Book of Enoch. That's in the King James Bible that God took Enoch.
Yeah. And you think about it, most people, when they say God took someone up to heaven, it means that they died. So
Enoch came back.
Reference, exactly. I was going to say, in this reference, though, he took Enoch, but then Enoch came back after 350 years. How did the people that were still there know it was still Enoch?
Oh, are you trying to get into clone
mysteries
stuff? Are you really bringing up clones right now?
I'm not bringing up clones right now. So I know how offended you get being one yourself.
Hey, we calm down there. Not a clone. I want to know what everyone else has to think if you've actually read the Book of Enoch, because I've read part of it. I've done, research on it, and it's just the way this is described, it made angels seem more like aliens than any other part of the Bible.
Yeah, they were sent here to kind of check things out on Earth, find out what people were doing, and keep an eye on them, and and decided, what, since we're here, let's have fun with this. And then, oops, we have giants. Okay, so.
Well, you Jinx, I want your opinion. You being the Bible banger that you are, how do you feel of the Book of Enoch?
I feel that everything should be questioned, 100%. Whether it's already in the Bible or not in the Bible, still you gotta question everything. Keep an open mind, but question everything. Just leave it at that.
Like I said, this is the only one that to me that seemed like it described aliens. That it seemed like not everything was as it seemed to the rest of the Bible.
But as to whether it's any more real than the rest of the Bible, I'd say probably not.
As we discussed in the beginning, it's one of those things where it was widely viewed as one of the more important books of the Bible to begin with before everything was moved around.
And then poof, no longer important because the people back then think it's a little too far-fetched. People with a lack of imagination, apparently.
Of course, it's too imaginative. So that's what I got for the Book of Enoch today.
All right. So yeah, if you guys have any thoughts on the Book of Enoch, of course, always feel free to email us at dstm@thejustdon'tnetwork.com. And when we come back, we've got another great topic for you. Instead of books, we're talking tablets this time.
Tablets and not made of regular stone either.
Yeah, we're off to see the wizard when we come back. Creating a podcast like Don't Shoot the Messenger can be a lot of hard work, but Anchor helps make our job a little bit easier. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast.
Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. So, if you've always wanted to start a podcast and make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast.
Welcome back to Don't Shoot the Messenger. We first discussed the Book of Enoch. Now it's time to get into some tablets.
Emerald tablets. That's my Wizard of Oz reference, the Emerald City.
Emerald tablets of Thoth. Thoth was an Atlantean priest that traveled to the land of Egypt before it was Egypt, and actually was credited by multiple people to being the creator of Egypt, essentially, like taking the people living in that area and civilizing them. He then, according to the Emerald Tablets, he was the creator of the Pyramids of Giza, which has been disputed by multiple people that multiple pharaohs were the ones that actually built them.
But nobody knows 100% for sure. It's speculation and their best guess based on what little information we do have. So who's to say? Who's to say?
And he traveled with several other priests that he trusted most from Atlantis. So he left Atlantis after he got wind that if you don't know the story of Atlantis, which we'll do another time, it was essentially civilization that was
disappeared.
It was more advanced than any other civilization ever. Like, it's more advanced than we are now, apparently, too. And it sank. It was like an island that just sank to the bottom.
And nobody knows where it originally was, where it sank at. That's another thing everybody's always searching for, the lost city of Atlantis.
Yes. So he got wind that was going to happen, and he gathered some of his priests and traveled to the land now known as Egypt. And he traveled with these tablets. And these tablets are supposedly emerald, like legit emerald with gold rings. There's 12 of them. And they give his life story, the knowledge of Atlantis, lots of different things that multiple scholars throughout time have said are still relevant to today. Isaac Newton stated that what he read from them is relevant to today.
And it's basically, they claim they're like a time capsule of information.
Yes.
That every generation can get something out of.
Yes. There's books out there that said they're translations. The earliest translation of it was 1200 BC AD. Before that, there supposedly it was an original translation in the city of Alexandria.
Yeah, which had the largest library back then, anyways, of books. And another thing that was destroyed.
Yes, that burnt down. They had it on display for all to see, the first translation of it, because they were written in hieroglyphics. And so it was the first little translation of it that was burned and lost. And it was lost for obviously like 900 years or something like that. And then they were found and translated again. Now, nobody knows where the actual tablets are. So we don't know if these are actual real translations of them or not.
Yeah, so you don't. Yeah, how do you find if it's correct or not when you don't have the original to go off of? You would think emerald stones. It's hard to, or emerald tablets, I should say, be hard to misplace. What is your theory on what happened to the emerald tablets?
My theory, after reading all of it, or reading up on all of this, Thoth was apparently immortal. He defied death and would choose to go whenever he so chose. He wouldn't die, he would just leave. And when he left, the rumor was that they are still in the pyramids. That there are chambers in the pyramids that are secret that nobody can enter, because there are certain ways you have to enter without it collapsing, because, we all know certain chambers have booby traps in the pyramids.
Yeah, the pyramids are a lot more dangerous than they look, and from the outside. They're meant to be tricky to navigate so that people wouldn't go in and steal things. And especially something as sacred and important and expensive, a rarity as these tablets, you would definitely think they would safeguard them as good as, or as well as they could.
Yes, and before he left, he put them in the pyramids and had appointed guards who, throughout the generations, their families have still, apparently still to this day, we don't know who they are, but still are protectors of the tablets.
Harry Potter fans would know that these stones contain the recipe for the Sword of the Stone. So,
the Sorcerer's Stone?
Or not the Sword of the Stone. I'm sorry. The Philosopher's Stone.
We're going
I'm
back
stuck in our Merlin. Yeah.
Yes. They have alchemy in them. They have different sciences. It talks of aliens and gods and all types of different things in it. Because alchemy was a big thing, and apparently, it was like a legit magical form.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Merlin had the Emerald tablets. Maybe that's where he got all his magic.
So before he left, he had them in the Hall of Amenti in Egypt, which he is also credited for building. And the reason that he's credited for building is since he's from Atlantis, because nobody knows how. We hear stories. Oh yeah, it was the 5,000 slaves built the pyramids.
And that's been disputed, that whether or not that was actually fact.
The accuracy that they're built at, the time period they said they were built in, it doesn't make sense unless somebody had outside help. That's the way I view it.
Yeah, as far as how they transported these large stones and got them in place. Yeah, with just regular manpower and the technology they had then, you have to figure there had to be something else that they knew and utilized.
It was supposedly because of his knowledge of Atlantean sciences why they were built so fast and so precise, is that it was his knowledge of all of that made it possible.
Which makes sense. I mean, if there was an advanced culture that had all this advanced knowledge, you would figure that they would have to know something about architecture and building, although it didn't help them keep their island from sinking. But, still, if they're that advanced, maybe they had different building techniques and technologies that would have helped with the pyramid or building of the pyramids.
If you don't know who Thoth is as well, he was the Egyptian god of writing, magic, wisdom, and the moon. Hey, the moon comes into play again. A
lot of people attribute the moon to wisdom. If you notice that, same thing with Roman and Greek mythology too, with Artemis.
Yes.
Or Apollo.
So Thoth is also accredited to the Atlantean cities around the world, which, the ones that are in South America, and because we see pyramids all over the world. They're all over the world. There are different pyramids all over the world. So he is accredited to helping build all of those as well, because those are known as Atlantean cities.
Like Machu Picchu and all of the, Incas, Aztecs.
Yes. Mayans. Mm-hmm. So on and so forth. So my question is with Thoth, how did he manage to travel around the world? So, that was not a thing that was viewed.
He was able to get away from Atlantis before it sank. He was able to figure out how to build the pyramids so precisely. Makes you think that he probably had some means of being able to travel or build a device for travel that was
extraterrestrial blood, because he's always depicted as man's body, bird's head.
Yeah, so maybe he could fly. We will never know.
We'll never know. There's 12 tablets though. There's books out there that said that they have that they're the translations of them. I've read some of them, and it's quite interesting on what they get into with their sciences and his knowledge and all of that.
It's like we could dig a lot deeper into this topic, because there's literally so much information revolving around the Emerald tablets. Yeah, whole tablets. Yeah, it's just a matter of how much of it's real and how much of it isn't, and how come this information isn't more widely shared. Hello, are you still there, Chris? All right, I seem to have lost Chris.
I'm here. Sorry, Chris.
Okay. I was just about to say, apparently the aliens have abducted Chris and decided that we cannot give any more of this information out. So hopefully Chris will be back in time for next week's episode of Don't Shoot the Messenger. Until then, if you want to get a hold of us.
I'm back.
Yay. You're back. We know too much. They're after you, Chris. Did they replace you with another clone again? What?
Maybe, who knows? So, I mean, the sciences and the alchemy and all of the tablets are renowned as, it's attributed that anybody who could read and absorb all of the knowledge could essentially become immortal themselves.
Prove to me that you're yourself. Say obelisk.
Obelisk.
Okay, it's you.
I'll put the French twang on it.
Obelisk.
Oh.
Oh.
All right. Jinx has obviously got the laughing gas going in her house right now. So
Apparently we've been recording too long, and it's time for us to look into other theories. So until next week, if you want to get in touch with us, go ahead and shoot us a message at dstm@thejustdon'tnetwork.com. Or if you want to send Chris some information directly, of course, Chris at thejustdon'tnetwork.com. He's always looking forward to hearing what conspiracy theories you guys have that you want us to look into, any knowledge you have or insight input you want to give on the topics you hear us talk about. Again, that's DSTM at don'tshootthemessenger.com, or we have a new Twitter handle.
DSTM, just don't.
There you go.
It'll be just don't shoot the messenger is what you'll see, and of course you'll just see our logo.
Go ahead and give us a tweet, give us a shout out, and until next week, remember, we're just the messengers. Pew 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 pew.
If you enjoy listening to Don't Shoot the Messenger, check out some of our other podcasts from the Just Don't Network. Shows like I'm Just Saying, Momnesia, and the all-new TNT Talk Not Turbulence. All can be found wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And now back to Don't Shoot the Messenger.